Good morning again. I know I welcome Claire, but then there were some more new faces after that. So welcome everybody. Today we're delighted to have Edward Hill with us. Ed has worked. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I had a little blip on my own computer. Sorry about that. Ed has worked for the Fairfax County Department of Public Safety Communications for 10 years as a 911 operator and dispatcher. He has experience processing emergency telephone calls and managing radio operations for police, fire, and EMS services within the county. Ed, thank you so much. Please, everybody just give him a warm welcome. Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. Before I start, I just wanted to make sure, like, how much time exactly do I have? I've never been to one of your meetings before, so I don't.
You have about 30 minutes, and then we have some time for questions and answers. So
okay, great.
But yeah, we'll kind of give you a 5-minute warning to be wrapping up and stuff.
Also, yeah, just small world. Derek and I actually went to school together years ago, so this is quite a coincidence.
Oh, no way, cool.
Yeah, we're getting to be old people now. Years ago.
Yeah. But,
Derek, should we all go off video for now while he's presenting?
Yeah, if you could. Everyone turn off cameras. Please mute yourself. And Ed, if you have a presentation and want to share it, I can give you kind of screen sharing capabilities.
Sure, yeah, I do have a PowerPoint that I can kind of reference off of. I don't think I'll be able to cover every slide because it's sort of a standard the slide presentation that the agency gives out for these kinds of things. So it's pretty long, but we definitely don't have to cover every slide, but it has some good information on it. So I guess I'll go ahead and use that. So I guess I would just hit share screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see, share screen. And this one here, I think. Okay. There we go. Is everyone able to see that?
Yeah, it's coming on. That's fantastic.
All right. Let me think if I, oops, no.
Cool, right there.
Should be there. Okay. Well, yes. Well, thanks very much for having me. Yeah, I've been working for Fairfax County for, actually, I just had my 10-year work anniversary at the end of last month. So longest I've ever worked any job. And it's definitely a very interesting experience. So from what I understand, all of you here have jobs or work that involves sometimes calling us, calling 911. You have emergencies, sometimes related to senior care or something else. And so you're interested in kind of just finding a little bit more about 911. And hopefully I can help with that a little bit. Like I said, the slide presentation is a little long, so I'll try not to linger too long on any one slide. Here's a picture of our building. Basically, we're located out in kind of near the intersection of I-66 and Fairfax County Parkway, if you've ever been out that way. It's very close to the Government Center building, if any of you have ever had any business there. But we call it the MP Stock or McConnell Public Safety Transportation Operations Center. And that's where all of our operations are held. It also houses the radio operations for both VDOT and the state police. So it's a combined agency building. PSAP is basically a fancy way of saying 911. That's a public safety answering point. Let's see here, that one. This is our non-emergency number. If anyone didn't already have that, of course, it's available online, of course. But we have both we have two main numbers. We have 911, of course, which is our main number. But also, if you have a non-emergency call, you just have questions or something like that, we do have a regular digit number that we can be contacted at. Just a little bit of history here. Probably not going to stay too much on this because this is kind of a whole thing in and of itself, but I do think it's kind of interesting to look over some of these numbers. First of all, 911 is historically actually relatively new. Actually, the very first 911 call was made in 1968, I believe, in Alabama. So prior to that, in the United States, if you wanted to call the police or the fire department, you basically had to call the station directly. You got to know that number. Obviously, that had a number of problems with it. If you didn't know that number, or maybe you were traveling or visiting in that area, you wouldn't know who to call. But thanks to having the 911 system, You just need to know those 3 numbers and you'll be connected to someone somewhere, wherever you are. 240 million 911 calls made last year in the entire country, but our county in particular generally receives about 1 million. Now that number has been a little bit different in the past year because of the pandemic. We've definitely seen a downturn actually in the number of calls. So I believe there's another slide that says it's been more like 750,000 calls for 2020 roughly. But typically it is about 1 million per year. Here we have a few pictures of the inside of the MP stock. These pictures are relatively up to date. They're a little bit out of, like this picture, I'm not sure if you can see. This picture here is a little old because that screen isn't there anymore. But as you can see, it's a very big structure. We have 3 agencies that share this floor, like I said, VDOT, state police, as well as the county, which encompasses both police, fire, and EMS. We won't go over this. This is more number of people who work there. Yes, here we go. Calendar year 2020, we had 779,814 inbound calls. Of those, 911 calls were 360,181. And we have a number of other types of calls that we can receive, like non-emergency. We do have texting now, actually, if you didn't know that. Not many people do. It's very new, probably in the past couple of years, 3 years maybe, that we received that capability. Language line, we receive a lot of calls that need to be interpreted, of course, that's just what that's referring to. So yes, so now going into, I guess, the way we receive calls. So if any of you who've dialed 911 in the past, I'm sure you probably used a cell phone. That's generally the most common way. Everybody has cell phones these days. That is wonderful in the sense that it gives you a means to contact help wherever you are. But it also can sometimes cause issues, right? Because unlike a landline, which is what the 911 system was originally built into, which is connected to a physical address, your cell phone can be anywhere. It's anywhere where you are. And so something we very critically emphasize to the public when we talk to them about how to properly use 911 is to always give your location, or do your best to give your location. So wherever you are, and especially if you call us at Fairfax, the first thing we're going to ask you is, where is your emergency? We're not going to, before we do anything else, we want to try to get your address. So if you work for a business somewhere, or something like that, it's always good to have that address memorized, just so you can immediately give it, and we have that right off the bat. And you'd be surprised at the number of people who don't actually know their address for where they're at. And I don't mean that to criticize, because I think a lot of us tend to sometimes go through our day on autopilot and don't really think about, the physical address where we live or work, because we don't need to. But of course, in a situation where you need someone else to come to you, you absolutely have to have that. So yeah, cell phones are definitely, they present some challenges for the 911 system. We actually, sometimes people ask what the most common kind of call is, and actually it's usually a pocket dial or a butt dial, because it's very easy to, sit on your phone or accidentally touch it. And most cell phones by law must be able to call 911 even if they're locked. So a lot of people think, oh, my phone is locked or something like that, it can't call anyone. It can still call 911. Actually, a phone that has no service can technically call 911 as long as it has a battery. And that's part of federal law. Obviously, the reason behind that is if you suddenly find a phone, you need to use it to call help, it must be able to call 911. So even if it has no service connected to it, no company is providing any service to that phone, as long as it has a battery charge and the physical components are working, it can dial 911. And people not knowing this often leads to accidental calls from children, because they'll give their cell phones to their kids as a toy, just to so it's fine for them to, just press buttons. Don't do that. It definitely can call 911. So just remember that. Let's see. It's going more into the kind of the GPS and triangulation nature of cell phones. So this is, again, I think obviously landlines don't have to worry about, they're just attached to a single location. But a cell phone moves, right? It's essentially a kind of GPS device, which means that when you call us, we have to use software and programs to figure out where that signal is coming from, to tell you your location, right? So why, if you have this, if you have a way to kind of zero in a location, why is that important? It's important because as good as the technology is for finding your location through this kind of software, it's not as accurate as you might think. As you can see here, it's within 50 to 300 meters. So if you call 911 and for whatever reason you can't get your address out or you don't know where it is, we can get a general idea of where you are. Sometimes it's pretty close, sometimes it's very, very far off. And a lot that has a lot to do with the strength of your cell phone signal, which can be affected by various things. Sometimes there's outages in the area or technical failures with cell phone towers. Can lead to a lot of errors. I've seen cell phone signals that were miles off of where a person was once we finally got their actual location by asking them questions and figuring out physically where they were, but their cell phone signal showed them somewhere very far away, sometimes in another county even. This is just emphasizing the need to stay on the line, give good information. Yes. This is another misconception from probably TV or movies, similar to the idea that, oh, well, we know instantly where you are through the track you. So I think that perhaps we are spying on them or tracking their data. We definitely can't do that. We don't have that authority and definitely don't have that technology. So no need to worry about that. This here is just a picture of one of the computer screens we use. This is we call this Vesta, which is the phone-based software. So when you call in, I would see this, essentially, this data here, as you can see. You can kind of ignore the stuff off the screen. The main information you want to look at is right here. Hopefully you can see me drawing on this. But this is essentially all of the cell phone transmission data. So it looks like a bunch of numbers, but it's actually all related to approximately where this person is when they call. So you can see there's a lat long here, as well as some confidence numbers. And all of that is basically telling the call taker who's receiving that call, okay, how accurate is this location on the map without being told anything else? And this one's pretty high. The COP is the confidence percentage, that's 90%. So wherever this person is calling from, it's probably pretty accurate, pretty reliable. And this is a map. So basically on that previous screen, that was the phone. This is the mapping system, which is connected to it. So that person calls in and the confidence is pretty high. So we can be pretty sure that this person is in this general area somewhere. That's pretty good. That's actually not a bad radius. However, as you can see, there is a potential problem in that, are they in this house? Are they in this house? Maybe this one here? Without more information, we may not exactly know where they are. And that's why it's so crucial to get that address information. Maybe they are on the street. Maybe they had a car accident and that's actually where they are. But again, we always try to verify and make sure as much as possible and not rely too much on just getting this map cell phone data. There's a slightly different view. Same information, just a kind of a different topographical presentation. Same thing here, kind of giving like the confidence, lat long. And this is like the Google Maps version of what that looks like. And again, this sort of does emphasize how even if that little circle, that radius, which is about this big, seemed like, oh, that's pretty accurate. How could you miss someone there? This is actually a pretty big area. There's lots of houses, there's trees and shrubs, backyard areas, all kinds of things that could obscure someone's view or hide someone. That might make it actually difficult to find them, even if we know they're generally in this area. So again, this all goes back into our emphasis on when you call 911, the most important thing, and probably the one thing that I most want anybody to come away with when I talk to them about 911 is know your location. If you say you're in trouble and all you can do is get off an address and the phone drops or you have to hang up or something, at least we know where you are. We may not know anything else about what's happening where you're at, but we're going to send somebody to you. And generally in that case, we'll send both the police and the fire department because we don't know if you're having a medical emergency or someone's attacking you or something like that. So we'll send both just in case. But now at least somebody's on the way to you and we can kind of start from there. But yeah, know your location if at all possible and try to give the most accurate location you can. We're going to ask you a lot of questions if you're able to stay on the phone. Things like your name, your phone number, all kinds of details about what's going on, where you're at. And all that is to just give more and more information to the responders. The more information, the better. We do have texting. We can probably, if anybody has questions about that later, we can get into that. It's a very new service. It essentially works the same way as regular texting. It's just that a 911 operator will answer it. And yes, it's just going back into the various things, the kinds of information we will ask of you when you call us. Now, a lot of times there's a tendency for people to think that we're delaying things or trying to ignore their problems by asking them all these different questions. Why aren't you sending help? Why are you taking so long? It's important to understand that by the time you're getting asked questions in detail about what's happening where you're at, there's already a call in and we have, we're dispatching units. So there isn't a delay. The reason we ask these extra questions is to give more context to the ambulance or fire truck or police cruiser that's on their way to you. In general, like I said, the more information they have, the better they're able to prepare and be able to start assisting you immediately as soon as they get there. I'm just talking about paint a picture of what's happening. So describe things as best as you can, right? In general, just try to answer whatever question the call taker asks you to the best of your ability. Like I said, sometimes the questions may seem strange or like, what does that have to do with anything? But generally there is a good reason for why we're asking it that may not be apparent right away. So I think I might have titled this presentation, Help Us Help You. And that's all what this is kind of relating to. It's something I like to emphasize about 911 is that it's not just, you're calling us and we're doing things for you. It's actually kind of partnership. So when we call 911 a public safety system, you're the public, right? So we need your assistance to make this work. If you don't call us, 911 won't do anything. If you call us, but don't give us good information, we may not even send help to the right place. So in other words, 911 is a tool, right? You are using this tool to help yourself or to help other people. And it's important to want to use that tool to the best of your ability. And one of the ways to do that is to, like I said, cooperate with the call taker, try to answer the questions as best you can. Know things about where you are and try to be as accurate as you can be in those things.
Ed, if you can hear us, I think you might be frozen.
He's having a few connection issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are you still able to see me?
You're back on now.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Was I gone for a significant period of time or?
After the slide about with the shark on it, we didn't hear anything after that.
10 seconds, 12 seconds.
Okay. Where was that?
The slide
Up here.
25 is
Okay.
where you should start.
Wait. By where? I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So based
slide
on
25. So we heard this, but slide 25, the next one.
Oh, the next one. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, thankfully you didn't miss much. I was going to largely go over these. These are more technically about like ranks and things like that. We don't really need to go over that, I think. just talking more about the internal structure of the MP stock, or the DPSC, the Department of Public Safety Communications, which is the name of the agency that we work for, that answers 911. So it's just talking a little bit more about like what I do and what anyone who works there does. Everyone is trained to answer 911 phone calls and first, and that involves going through a small academy, kind of like a training academy, followed by some on-the-job training. And generally, once you learn to take emergency phone calls, you will be allowed to expand into other skills, usually a radio type skill, where you're managing units in the field. So, you know, police, fire, and EMS, you know, things like that. It's just the basic qualification. If anyone's interested in applying, we are almost always looking for people. They go through hiring cycles, because the academy takes about 2-3 months, followed by that on-the-job training. This is just a look at our schedule, which is really just more for a fun fact, not really super important, I think, for the public to know. But basically, we work what's called a firehouse shift. So the shifts are all 12 hours, either a day or a night. Usually, you're assigned to only one or the other. So I work nights exclusively. Actually, I'm working tonight. And today being Wednesday, that would be an on for me here, but I was off these 2 days. So I was off last night, and you know, obviously I'm awake now, but I will sleep during the day and then wake up again to go to work on this day. So some nice pictures of what our actual work stations look like. So again, when you're calling in and you want to picture what it looks like on the other end, it's something like this. So this is a call taking station. As you can see, lots of computers. We have different systems, like the phone system, which is that screen with all that data on it about the lat long. CAD is computer aided dispatch. That's the mapping system that kind of connects to that. So when you call, it feeds into that system and shows on the map approximately where you are, as well as all the address data and things like that. We also just regular PCs for, you know, looking at information online, because there's more information that has to be tracked. And the fire dispatch here, again, lots of computer screens. And of course, in the police and the radio, you have a radio component as well, which the call takers don't have. So emergency medical dispatch, this is something that you will probably definitely encounter when you call us, especially if you're calling for anything medical related, in other words. EMD is a system basically for asking questions about a patient's medical condition. This picture over here is a set of cards, and you may not be able to see it very well, but each one of those cards has a kind of a type of medical emergency on it. So like one of them is abdominal pain, one of them is chest pain, one of them is like pregnancy, things like that. So when you call in and, you know, you say, hey, I have a 75-year-old resident who is experiencing some chest pain, I would turn to the card because that is his chief complaint. That is the thing that is bothering him most. And so I'm going to ask questions surrounding that type of condition. And in those cards are a series of the criteria, basically, for what level of care to send. And depending on what answers are given to those questions will kind of change, you know, exactly the level of care that's. So it's a way of triaging, basically, a medical call. Similar to when, you know, you go to the ER in person and the nurse asks you a bunch of questions and that determines, you know, okay, you're going to be shown immediately into the doctor, or you're going to go to the OR, or you're going to wait, you know, 10 minutes or something like that. Not that we'd be making anyone wait, but it's a similar process. So yeah, based on the chief complaint, instructions written by, and it's important to also remember that these questions are not made up. We didn't just come up with them on our own. They are very carefully curated by the Office of the Medical Director for the county. Every county has one, and it's basically the doctor who's in charge of managing the medical side of our system. This is actually a small clip of a 911 call. I don't know if we really have time to listen to the whole thing, but I can play just really briefly. I believe this is a pregnancy call or delivery call.
Fairfax County 911, where is your emergency? My wife is water just and she's in okay, how old is she? A moment. Okay, how far along is she? She's full term, but she's 40 weeks right now. 40 weeks? Yeah, 40 weeks. Yes. Is this her first pregnancy? No, this is the third one. Okay. And is she having contractions? Yes, she is having contractions right now. We're supposed to take her to the midwife, which is in the Stone Spring Hospital. Okay, I went ahead and started your call. Give me one moment. Okay. How far apart are her contractions? How far? I mean, she's on it right now.
So Ed, I think you're frozen again.
Might help if he turned his video off.
Yeah. Ed, if you can hear us, maybe turn off your video for a second.
Oh, the non-emergency number.
Gary.
Okay, so please follow under buttocks and have additional towels ready if available, okay? Okay. The baby's head usually delivers first. As the head begins to deliver, support it gently. Okay. As the head begins to deliver, support it gently to prevent the baby from coming out too fast. Do not push or pull the baby, okay? Okay. Okay. Be sure the umbilical cord is not wrapped around the baby's neck. If it is, try this, okay? I'm telling you, I've never done this. That's okay. I'm telling you how. Oh, did you hear all that? Is the head still coming out? Yes. Okay, so make sure that umbilical cord is not wrapped around its neck. If it is, try to slip the cord gently over the baby's head using your fingers. He's out. Oh. Okay, the whole baby is out? Oh, it's not making noise now.
Okay, as you can see, that ended with the actual delivery of the baby. By the way, am I still on? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure the internet connection hadn't dropped again. But yeah, so that's an example of a call in this case of delivery. As you can see, the call taker was asking a lot of questions, right? A lot of things about like what are the nature of the contractions? How far apart are they? Is this her first pregnancy? Things like that. It may seem like a lot, especially when you're you're the person calling 911 in that situation, you may be kind of excited or very stressed out, obviously, in a situation like this. And you might wonder, like, what does this have to do with anything? Like, why don't you just send an ambulance? They'll take care of it. But the reason they're asking these questions is because it can change the nature of their response, as well as determine what kind of care they're going to give when they get there. So this call, fortunately, turned out very well because the baby was delivered, very healthy, no issues. But say, an umbilical cord was wrapped around the child's neck, like the call taker was asking. That's an emergency situation. That's I can't remember the exact name of it. It's a bit like a prolapsed umbilical cord, but it's life-threatening, and that would definitely affect the care given to the infant. So again, these questions do have a purpose, even though it might seem like it's a waste of time. And another thing to note is, by listening to that call, maybe you might have felt that took a long time, right? But that clip was maybe not even 2 minutes. So another thing we get a lot of is when people call us, they feel like, oh man, I've been on the phone for so long. It's been 10, 15 minutes, and really it's been more like 1 minute, 2 minutes. We sometimes call this the telescoping time effect. When you're in a crisis situation, you tend to think things are taking longer than they actually are. And it's natural, like it happens to everyone, it happens to me. So sometimes if you're calling 911, you may, if you feel like, oh, I've been on the phone for so long, actually you may not have been on the phone very long at all, maybe less than a minute. So it's important to keep in mind the way that time gets distorted during emergency situations. Let's see. A little bit more about the dispatchers. Again, the questions we need answered. It's not slowing anything down, right? So the entire time she's asking
your 5-minute kind of heads up too. All right.
5-minute warning. Okay,
Yep.
I think we're almost done with the slide.
Okay,
I think we're doing good. Yeah, so again, the entire time she was asking all these questions about contractions and things like that, an ambulance was already on the way. So no need to, that father had no need to be worried about that aspect of things. So just talking a little bit more about the radio side of operations. This is a little bit, I guess, outside of the, the 911, you as the member of the public calling 911, you wouldn't necessarily see this aspect of things, but teletype is also more of an administrative thing, so we won't really get into that. And yes, this is basically just wrapping up. It's 911, right, for immediate calls regarding immediate danger, crime in progress, health and safety of a person. But don't forget our non-emergency number, right? So maybe you have a question about something, you're not really sure who to ask. We do have that number there. And even if we can't help you, we can maybe point you in the right direction. Look up, another county agency that might be better able to handle that. And finally, I'm not sure how much we're really doing tours right now with the pandemic. That might be something you want to contact the agency, the administrative side of the agency, to ask about if you really are interested. But in the past, of course, we have had tours and we've had sit-alongs, which is when a member of the public can come in and that can be a great way to kind of get a firsthand look at all this stuff and experience it for yourself. And like I said, you can even apply to work there if you want. But yeah, that's the end of the slide presentation. And I think I'm pretty much at the end of my time limit, right?
Yeah, you're good. I'd love to take some questions, and if some questions for you, because I think this is a topic that we don't know a lot about. I mean, I've been working in senior care for over 25 years and I don't know a lot about it. So do we have some questions?
Yeah, definitely. Should I take the screen share down, by the way? I guess stop share, right?
Yeah.
I can see everyone. Yeah.
And Ed, if you're able to make that slide deck available, I'd be happy to post it for the group to access.
I did ask, unfortunately, they don't want it being sent out.
Okay.
I apologize for that. I think the reason is because they're afraid of maybe the data becoming outdated and getting passed along. But unfortunately, they said I can't. So
fair.
No worries, no worries at all. Is it okay to post a recording of this meeting, or should we?
I believe so. I
can
can double check on that, just to be on the safe side. So, let's see.
Very informative.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sorry if I went a little fast. I know it was a lot, and I was definitely going over some of the slides that I felt were not as relevant maybe to our discussion. Oh, there I am.
I think you did great, Ed. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Ed?
I have a quick question. I actually had a couple questions. The first one was, first of all, I love the shot of the, sort of nerve center of where these guys sit and take calls, and how you can track geographically where they are via GPS. And so there's so much cool technology out these days too, in terms of wearable devices to check vitals.
Yeah.
And even like in-home, cameras as well. And I'm wondering if there's any movement towards being able to, if there's some sort of a urgent crisis in a home or what have you, if you can actually get access to those cameras to see if everything's okay, et cetera, through, whether you're taking a call for police or for a medical emergency. How does that work?
Yeah, what you're referring to is kind of, well, in the industry, it's referred to as next gen 911 or E911 sometimes. And it's basically that. It's the incorporation of all of this new tech right into 911. I guess the level at which any of that stuff is incorporated definitely varies by region. In general, it's hard for a lot of these systems to actually use that stuff because our systems are just not built to incorporate them. So for example, if you have your cell phone, obviously pretty much everyone's cell phone has a camera, right? So some people were like, oh, why can't I just have my camera upload directly to your 911 center and then you can see what I'm seeing? The reason we can't is because we don't have basically a technological system to receive that information. Yeah, like there is also legal stuff.
Yeah, like birthing the baby. I mean, if there was a FaceTime call for that could be helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, there is definitely a lot of talk about it and how to like the best way to kind of incorporate it. It's both, well, I guess there's two issues, basically. There's a logistical technical issue, like how to actually make it happen, as well as a legal one. Obviously, when you start getting into video and stuff like that, there's the potential for like HIPAA violations. I'm sure you're all familiar with that aspect of the law. Privacy issues, things like that, all kinds of concerns with the way data is recorded and stored. So those two things, I think, in general, are the main obstacles. We're making little bits of progress. Like, for example, the texting thing is very new. And I know that might seem like a very minor thing, but that's an example of a small step in that direction. And of course, opinion is divided on whether or not we even want that technology to come in. I know a lot of my coworkers don't want video capability. Actually, they feel like that wouldn't help.
Well, I was impressed by how well trained the operator was to be able to walk somebody through, you know, the birthing of the baby, or if somebody needed helping with chest compressions or, you know, CPR, that type of thing too. I could see it being a lifesaver.
So Bill,
absolutely.
I'm sorry, Ed, there's a question on the chat that says a couple years ago, Fairfax Long-Term Care Committee was discussing Smart 911, so people could register health issues online. Any further discussion on this topic?
Let's see. Let me take a look at the Smart 911. Okay. That might have been just part of the general discussion about like E911. I myself don't recall hearing about that. I'm guessing this would be some way to maybe have like standard information, perhaps about a person, maybe someone who has like lots of medical issues.
Right. Someone. Can I say something?
Sure.
Someone was just, I think they were selling a software product and presented to our committee multiple times. And that's where an individual with cardiac issues or something like that might register online, so that as the 911's approaching, they could, you know, they could get some information on that location. So anyway, it does sound like it maybe predated 911. And I think I said, thanks for the answer, because when you were talking about the E911, it sort of gave me the impression that that's, that's where the discussion is at this current time. So
right, yeah, that I'm sure that idea is part of a larger discussion of ways to kind of improve 911 and make it more integrated with the technology people use today. I haven't heard anything about that that particular aspect myself, though.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mark, you have your hand up. You have a question?
I do. My question is, since a lot of us are involved in assisted living or independent living communities that are like gated, is there a preferred procedure, say like an independent living in that community, to call 911? Or is it supposed to be to the clinic there and they do it? You know, is there a preferred way of doing this?
Speaking as a call taker, I always want to speak most directly, if possible, to the person experiencing the emergency. Because generally speaking, they're the ones who are going to be best able to tell me what's wrong.
Okay.
I recognize that sometimes that could be difficult under those circumstances. Obviously, if you're experiencing a medical emergency that makes it difficult for you to breathe, for example, you may not be able to answer a lot of questions. So perhaps in that case, it would be better for you to contact someone there, either at your front desk or at a clinic, and have them call on your behalf. So I guess it would depend on the situation. I think if you are the one experiencing the emergency and you are able to call and give that information, I think that's best. But again, if you feel like you can't, try to get a second party on hand who can help you with that. Third party is probably the least preferable. So calling someone off site or someone who can't make face-to-face contact with you, that is, you know, because they're so removed from the situation, that's generally the least ideal, I would say, in terms of who would call.
All right. Thank you. Thank you much. And it was a good presentation, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Thanks, Ed. One more question, and then we have our spotlight speaker. So Bonnie, you have a question?
I do, and I'm sorry if you talked about this before I came on. I was having trouble coming in, Ed. It was a great presentation. But so I had an experience in Maryland. Actually, I've had several of them. because I also cover Maryland, some counties up there with neglect in a rehab. And I know that's not a 911 call, and I don't know if you can speak to this in terms of how that's handled in Loudoun County.
Well, Ed
Well,
works in
I'm Fairfax in particular.
but-
I'm sorry, then Fairfax is probably Virginia is pretty across counties similar. I don't know. And
Yeah, I mean, we're different jurisdictions. We do have lots of similarities, of course, but oh, so do you mean just like elder abuse in general, or like in terms of when we receive calls about that?
So what happened was this woman was she was being neglected. Her care was not being given, and we were trying to get her out of the rehab. And the only way the rehab wasn't cooperating with us for how to make that happen. And so the only way to do that was to call the non-emergency number, and the police came, not EMS, but the police,
right,
determined that she wasn't medically in distress. And, you know, I don't know how police are trained to make that determination. That's a little questionable to me, but anyway, it was just a sort of
I understand what you're saying.
A nightmare.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a tough issue. We do receive a lot of calls, either from a resident or from a family, often a family member, and they will say something to the nature of, you know, I'm being abused, or my relative is being abused, or I feel like they're not getting the proper level of care, or they're being neglected, or something like that. A lot of times, well, first of all, the reason we send the police in this case is because essentially what's being said, being told to us is that this person doesn't want to be at this particular facility anymore. Or they feel like they're having some kind of dispute, I guess, with the staff or the medical staff on site about what should be done in a certain situation or something like that. And to the police, of course, that's a very tricky situation because, of course, they're not doctors, they're not medically trained, so they can't really properly evaluate who is right in that situation. So unfortunately, they oftentimes, what they have to tell them is like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to take this to court, or have that mediated through some sort of civil process, because the police are really more trained for criminal matters. So, for example, if the resident called and said like, oh, I had been assaulted by another resident or by a caretaker, that'd be a different matter. They could probably take a report on that, investigate that. But if it's really more about, I feel like my father hasn't been getting the right kind of nutrition over the past 6 months, that's very difficult for them to evaluate. It's not that they don't care. It's just like, how are they supposed to figure that out is, I guess, the main problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very tricky situation. It's not that there's no issue going on there, I'm sure. It's just that they're not very well equipped to handle that.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Ed, we're just out of time. Bonnie, the better course of action for that would be Adult Protective Services. Quite honestly, that's what.
Yeah. Well, so in Maryland, Adult Protective Services doesn't deal with long-term care, so that's
well, there you go.
That's a whole other issue. So yeah, but thank you. I mean, this was a little more than nutrition not happening for 6 months.
Ed,
sure, I was just getting that. Yeah.
Sorry, we're running out of time, so I'm trying to help move us along.
Thank you.
No,
Ed, thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. it was great hearing. Tony also saw you, so he said, great job. Wanted me to share that. And just, thanks for your time this morning. I know you got to work tonight. So I do see a couple more hands up. I'm sorry, we're out of time. Ed, can people email you?